Hello, this is Bob Kramer. Here we are in the garage again. Today's project is reinstalling the front cover on this 1980 Honda Goldwing engine. So this is part of a series of videos. I've rebuilt the entire engine. It's got new piston rings. There's another video on honing it and installing the pistons. So I've gone over the whole thing. I've put a new clutch in it. There's a video about installing the clutch and assembling the rear case, which you see here. So today, my goal is to install the front cover, which is laying here on the workbench, and then I'm going to clean the block and paint it. So I want to point out, this front cover involves several O-rings, plus in addition to a gasket. So if you look here, there's a little piece of pipe here that carries oil, and there's an O-ring around it. There's another O-ring here. This is a water passage. So when the water pump is running, it's moving water through that passage, and there's an O-ring here. On the other side, there's another O-ring for another water passage on this side. Okay, and then down below, this is where the water pump shaft is going to go in, and there's another O-ring here, and there's another pipe here with an O-ring on it, and also up in here there's a small dowel, and there's an O-ring around that dowel as well. So you have to make sure you get all these O-rings in position, and you have to make sure that the O-rings are all the correct size so they don't leak. All right, then the next step here is going to be to install the gasket. Oh, one more thing. On these O-rings, I always like to put a coating of white Teflon grease in the groove, and the Teflon grease is kind of sticky. This is it here. It's a Finish Line product, Teflon grease. It's kind of sticky, and it dissolves well into the oil and antifreeze and doesn't mess anything up. But it does a really good job of holding all those O-rings in place until you get the cover actually installed. So, okay, I'm going to pause this now and get the camera on a stand so you can watch me install the gasket and the cover. I'm going to put a light coating of grease on and on the gasket to help it seal. Oh, and also you'll see there's a 6-position gear switch here, and the piece that operates that 6-position gear switch is right here on the end of the shifting drum. So you have to make sure your shifting drum is in neutral. And on this motor, there's a detent right here and a spring-loaded roller that locks into that detent. So so we know for sure that that is now in neutral. There's a plug here with a series of wires. The green wire on the plug is neutral. So I'm going to have to hook up an ohm meter and make sure that the neutral wire is made through the switch when I install the cover. Okay, and if that's all correct, then the gear indicator should work correctly. Now also, where the wire exits the cover, right here, I'm going to put some black silicone sealant in behind this rubber block to get that to make sure that that seals and doesn't seep any oil. Okay. This is the original water pump. If you don't want these to leak, you need to get the Honda OEM O-rings for this. I haven't been able to find any aftermarket O-rings that actually fit this water pump correctly and don't leak. Okay, so that's how that goes. Alright, I'm going to smear a little grease on that O-ring so to help it slide into its bore. Alright. Right there the switch is made. I'm just going to check the rest of the wires, make sure I don't have a short through that switch to any of the other wires. Final check. Okay. Okay, that's in the correct position, and it looks like it matches the position of the shifting drum. This gasket fits over 3 dowels. I'm rubbing it a little bit to make sure the grease holds it in place. Make sure all the screw holes line up. Looks pretty good. So before I get too far here, I want to test the switch and make sure it's that I got it lined up correctly, because I couldn't really see in there. So there's a ground connection on the meter, and then the engine's still in neutral, so it's going to be the green wire like that. Get the meter in the right mode. Okay, something's wrong. The switch isn't working. So I'm going to put the gear shift lever in place and wiggle it.
Test this and make sure it's working. The meter's not working. Okay, so I don't have a good connection somewhere.
Okay, now it worked. So don't jump to conclusions. When something doesn't work, make sure your meter is working correctly. So one of my jumper wires, my alligator clip wires, isn't making contact. So I'm going to put it in first gear and check. I should be made on the yellow wire. I'm made on the white wire. Oh, that's second gear. I pushed it up. There, that should be first gear. Yellow. Yes, the switch is working. That's first gear. Neutral. And then pull it up to second gear. And it's working. Okay, so I can continue. I didn't want to torque down the gasket if I am going to wind up taking it apart again. So I have to make sure that's working. Notice I had to wiggle the water pump shaft a little bit. I do not have the cover for the water pump right now because it's out being powder coated. I got the water pump cover and the oil filter cover are being powder coated, and they're not back yet, and a few other things. So what I'm going to do is I've got to find a couple of bolts to put in here so I get even pressure on the gasket. And I'm going to do that before I apply the torque wrench. Bolt missing. It's this one. Make sure you get all the bolts in there. That one was hidden behind the wire. Okay, well that wraps up this video. I just have to find two bolts the right length to put in here temporarily until I get the water pump cover, and then I'm gonna torque this all up, and then I'm gonna mask everything off that's not being painted, and I'm gonna paint this block. Okay. that's all for now. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel.